Today we're going to cover the interface for the unit and explain what all these buttons and labels and knobs and so on and so forth. The KLN89B, in our case this is a KLN89. The difference is with the letter B, it designates that the GPS unit is IFR capable and can do IFR approaches. Without the letter B, it's just VFR use only. Okay, so the unit is turned on, and as you can see, it's actually docked in a docking station called Commander Docking Station. I will probably do a video on this at some point, those of you interested in using the docking station for home use. The unit is very simple and straightforward to use. There's a lot of capabilities hidden behind these buttons and labels. Let's start with the big items. We'll go from the left to the right. On the left hand side, you can see the card itself. This is the database card, and this is the on and off switch, and the mechanism is tied together to whereas you cannot take the card by pulling on this out. You cannot do that until you turn the system off. And to do that, you turn this knob to the left, and you can see the little white dot goes from on to off, and at the same time it moves this latch down, thereby allowing you to simply pull this. So it forces you to turn it off before you can pull this out. To insert it, simply when you get it, it's a card that looks like, I happen to have an extra card, looks like this. This is what the card looks like, and this is the knob that sticks out right here. And if you can imagine this inside the unit, you simply hold that notch, pull it all the way out, and voila, you have the card. The card itself has some connections mechanism to where you simply, when you receive one of these cards and you want to insert it in a open slot right here, you simply make sure the tab is on top and you push it in gently, and then when it gets to the end you give it a little bit of a gentle shove to make sure the pins and the holes basically have good contact. Once you have that card in place, of course, then you can turn this to the on position right there, and the machine comes on. This light right here is an indication, a status of the unit. Sometimes the unit is not receiving good GPS signals, and it'll let you know that it's not ready for navigation. This light will come on. Beyond the card and the on and off switch, to the right of that, you'll see the main screen. We're not going to talk about that, it's self-explanatory. However, if you look down here, you see a row of buttons and a row of labels right above it. Interestingly enough, the buttons and the labels do not correlate. These are separate functions than these. In general, the way I like to refer to this is these labels are chapters, and see my other videos on chapters and pages. Each chapter talk about specific topic. In this case, we're talking about APT is airports, VOR is self-explanation, repeat, it's self-explaining, NDB, of course, INT is intersection, user is user point, ACT is active waypoint, NAV is navigation page, FPL is flight plan page, and CAL is a calculator page, and SET, of course, set, where you can set a lot of settings for the unit itself. OTH is for other. There's other functions available. The buttons themselves are message. You click this button. It's a physical button. You click it. Whereas the chapters, you get to it by turning the knob to the left or right. And I'll explain that to you in a minute once we go through a self-test and so on and so forth. So back to message. When you see a big letter M on the left-hand side of the screen while you're using the machine, you can click message and it'll display the message to you. OBS is for OBS operation. I'll have another video on how to use that. ALT is for altitude, and it gives you a page whereby you can input your aircraft altitude, and that way it gives you accurate information. NRST is nearest, and it's almost self-explanatory. If you want to get, because of their version or whatever the case is, and you want to know the nearest airports, nearest VORs, nearest NDB, and so on and so forth, you click nearest and you select the waypoint that you're interested in. And this button is an easy navigation button, otherwise known as direct to. You click that and it gives you a way to input where you want to go, and you go from there. Clear button, CLR, with a greater than sign next to it, is an option key that can either clear values from a field, or it will cycle through different values in a field. And I will show you an example of this a little later. ENT is for enter. So in this example, while the screen is flashing A-OK, to say, yes, I agree that this system is in take home mode and I will not use it for navigation, I will use the enter key to respond to it. And right here it's doing a self-test and it looks like it passed. I hit enter again. And it's telling me the date, the time, and so on and so forth. I will hit enter again. And it says, okay, are you sure that you know that GPS is for VFR only as compared to IFR and approaches? VFR does not do GPS approaches, hence it's saying it's disabled. You say, okay. Notice that this is only KLN89. In the aircraft 663 Sierra Pop, of course it is KLN89B, which is GPS capable of doing approaches. And it tells me what the database is and what the expiration date. Acknowledge, yes. And the fuel on board is 53. You can adjust this later. For now, we're going to say another yes. And after all these yeses, now we're on the page where we left last time. So whatever page you were on last time, it starts there. And here is the message button. As you can see, there's a flashing message right here. I will simply push the message button and it'll give me the message. When I'm done with that message, I'll click the message button again and it should go away. Now I have other videos that talk about the content of what's displayed on the screen. I'm going to limit this to just the interface. So I'm going to go over how you get from chapter to chapter. As you can see, right now there's a little dash lines right here under A that is right above APT. So that tells me I am at chapter APT, which is airport, and I'm at page number 5. To move this to the right so I can see the VORs, I simply reached to the knobs, and that's a good point to talk about the knobs now. The knobs have 3 functions. Have the outside knob, the big knob, which will help us go from chapter to chapter, and the inner knob, which is this little knob here, and it'll help us to go from page to page. So if I go to NDB, that's a chapter, and it tells me I'm an NDB page 1. Now if I turn the inner knob, the smaller knob, to the right, now on NDB chapter, but page 2. If I continue to the right, it cycled back to the first page. and this is applicable to all pages. So as I go from chapter to chapter, I'm going to take the bigger knob and turn it to the right, and here's my intersection chapter, page 1, page 2, page 1. So it cycles to the end of the number of pages and then goes back to the first page. Now, all of these chapters are reachable through the outer knob. The outer knob also plays a major role. Let's take the flat plan, for example, in other capabilities. So flat plan will introduce this last button right here, which is the cursor. So in essence, this is how you communicate with the GPS. You first select which chapter you want to deal with. Say I want to deal with flat plans. Which page of the flat plans you want to deal with. I'm dealing with page number 1, 2, and so on and so forth. And then to change the values of any of these fields, you have to have the cursor turned on. And to turn it on, you simply push it in once. And you can see it flashing. Once you have the cursor on, then you have to use the outer knob to go to the field that you want to get to. So by turning it to the right or to the left, you traverse the available fields. So when you get to it, let's say I want to add another entry in the flat plan. I use the big knob to scroll down to an empty waypoint, and then using the inner knob, now I start turning and start putting up characters. So here's the letter K. I move with the big knob to the second position. I'm looking for the letter M. Here's M, and I use the big knob to find the letter R, and you guessed it, I am going to KMRB, Martinsburg. And once I have the letters that I want, and I want to accept the value, then I hit enter. And in this case, it displays a confirmation page with the screen flashing ENT, that stands for enter. And this says that, okay, I'm waiting on you to confirm, and to confirm what I'm waiting on you for, hit the enter button. And in this case, say KMRB is the one. Yep, and you can see it's listed up here, and I can use the knob up and down and see what my plan looks like. So now let's talk about the CLR button, which is next to the enter button right here. This is a special key, and it clears data values from fields, and it also cycles through different fields. So we are on flight plan chapter, page 0, which is the active flight plan, and you can tell by the arrow from Leesburg to Jason right here. Now, to demonstrate how the clear button is supposed to do, basically assume a scenario of wanting to delete an entry as is scenario 1. So to delete an entry, we're going to go to flight page number 2, and I'm going to hit the cursor and use the big outer dial to come down to KMRB, and doesn't make sense to go from Leesburg to Winchester and then from Winchester to Martinsburg. So I want to delete Martinsburg as a waypoint. I use the clear button for that. I simply hit once, and it asks me to confirm, do you really want to delete the waypoint? And this time I use the enter button to delete it, and voila, there it goes. Continuing with the clear button, besides deleting things, it also cycled through fields to demonstrate that with the cursor still turned on, and turn the knob to the left one more time. Notice now the field is flashing under distance, right? Distance field is a special field denoted by the greater than sign. that tells me that it has other potential fields that I can display there other than distance. So to know what these are, this is when clear button comes in handy. So when I have it placed on that field, it's flashing and it does have a greater than sign. Then I'll use the clear button once. Now it's displaying desired track instead of distance. And I hit again. Now it's back to distance. So it's cyclic, meaning you can keep hitting it and see all the options that you can get in that field until you're happy with what you're looking for. Let's say I want to see the desired track instead of distance. If I'm happy with that, I can then say, okay, thank you, stop flashing. And this applies to any screen that has greater than sign. So if I go back from chapter flight plan page 1, which is a stored flight plan, go back to the active flight plan, I can do the same thing. You guessed it. I need to turn the cursor on, and it happened to be the first one where I want it to be. I want to change this, and because it has a greater than sign, I'm going to use the clear button. I push it once, and now have an estimated time en route. Hit it again. Now I have the universal time, and I hit it again, and now I have the desired track. So I have options that I can work with. I'm not limited to whatever the default setting is. And I hit it one more time, and we're back to distance. So to accept any of the other ones, let's say I want to go with the desired track. When I'm satisfied with it, I can turn the cursor off, and there it is. It's now showing me the desired track. Let's talk about Direct To. Direct To button in its simplest format, wherever you are, you can simply reach out and click this button, and what it does, it says you're going direct to where? To answer that question, it displays a suggested location, right? And that is because from your flight plan, Jason was the next expected waypoint. So it assumed that that's where you really want to go. Maybe you deviated from the course or whatever, and you want a direct path to it. If not, you simply use the inner knob and start turning the inner knob to the right. It gives you a K. You can put in KMRB or whatever. Let's see, KM. RB. I hit enter. It asks me to confirm. Do you really want to direct to Eastern Western Virginia Shepherd Airport in Martinsburg, West Virginia? If I do, I will hit enter. And notice as soon as I hit enter, it goes from the chapter it's on, which is airports, page 1, to click enter, to navigation right away. Smart enough to say, okay, sounds like you want to go there in a hurry, so here's the navigation of how to get there, and here's a message for you. The message is flashing, and I click, what is the message? Aha, it tells me it calculated a GPS course that from wherever you are, if you follow 326, you will get to Martinsburg. So you use this info to set it in your heading, indicator, and your CDI if you're using autopilot. And I hit message again to get out of this and come back to navigation. Okay, I'm not going to get into navigation because I have an extensive video on that. Look for my navigation video next to where my other videos are. But basically it tells you now you are going from wherever you are directly to Martinsburg, and desired track is 326, and if you're in the airplane, it will tell you what your actual track is, and this number better be the same to make sure you're on course. Right? It also tells you it's about 27.8 nautical miles from where you are to Martinsburg. And if you're in the air, it will show you the ground speed of your airplane. Right? It's telling you you're in a leg mode and so on and so forth. Now, that's all there is to use direct to. For those of us, side note, for those of us that are IFR rated, and I am working on my IFR, in missed approach situation, direct to button comes in handy. So when you declared missed approach and you want to go to your missed approach point, you use direct, and GPS suggests the next point, which happened to be the missed approach point. You hit enter and voila, you have the same information to get you from where you are to that missed approach. All right, so now we're going to talk about OBS operation, which is the second button from the left. Okay, OBS in its simplest format, the way I understand it, is it allows you, instead of using a leg mode from the point you're at to the point you're going to, using the shortest path or course, OBS allows you to get from where you are to the point you want to get to, but on specific radio. Meaning, say you want to approach Martinsburg VOR, from Leesburg to Martinsburg, very likely it's on 330, 325 radio, it'll get you there. But assume you want to get to Martinsburg VOR on the 09, or let's say 2702 bearing, right? So what we do, let's combine a couple of buttons. I'm going to go with nearest to help us find where Martinsburg VOR is. So I click nearest, and I got multiple options. Airport is highlighted already, but I don't want airport. I want VORs. I use the big knob to turn to the VOR, and then I hit enter. Now, if you happen to be closer to Martinsburg VOR, it will be the first one available, right? I happen to position this docking station closer to Armel, which is the Dulles Airport VOR. All right. So let's say if we can find Martinsburg, what I do, I have a flashing, which is the number one closest to me, VOR is this. And what it tells me is I am 9.6 nautical miles from Armel on 1652. All right, that's good information to have. Now, let's say I'm looking for, oh, by the way, it also shows you the frequency for that VOR. It's a 113.5. But let's say I'm looking for Martinsburg specifically, because my instructor said direct to Martinsburg. So what I do, which is the third function of the knob, the inner knob, gently hold it and pull it out. Here we go. And it shows you, or it gives you a different function. So instead of going on page to page, now it goes from VOR to VOR. And I'll start turning the inner knob while it's pulled out to the right. And now I have different VORs. I'll continue. And here's MRB, which is the third closest to me. Now I will push the inner knob in again and start paging through Martinsburg VOR info. So what that tells me, it's MRB. The name is Martinsburg, which is correct. It's the third closest VOR to where I am. Its frequency is 112.1, which we all know that's true. And to get to it, I will go from wherever you are to 335, and I would travel 22.9 miles before I get to it. Now, this information is used with the shortest course from where you are to Martinsburg. Notice that it's 335, so you come in at Martinsburg VOR on the 3352, or in that case, 155 from, right? It's always tough, but you think about that. Now, let's say my instructor wanted me to come at Martinsburg VOR on the 270. All right, so I use the nearest, I flipped through and I found Martinsburg. So now I want to say, okay, I want to go there directly. All right, I hit the direct button, and notice it transferred MRB, not KMRB. This is the airport, but we're going to the VOR itself. And I say, okay, take me there. And it says, okay, we're going directly there. But it's recommending to use 335. Now that doesn't work for me, so I want to use the OBS, right? So in this case, I say thank you, but no thank you. I click the OBS button, and notice the leg is gone, and instead it's showing me the bearing to. And I can simply now turn the inner knob while it's pushed in. Remember to push it in, and then turn it to .270. And what that does is now I'm telling the GPS to show me how to get from where I am to Martinsburg VOR on the 272 bearing. All right, and with that set, I can now click cursor off, and notice that the desired track is gone because you overrode the desired track with your input that you want to go to Martinsburg VOR via the 2702 bearing. Also notice that the needle now has switched way to the right. So here you are going to, with this triangle pointing out that up, that means it's going to, but your needle is to the right, so you're to the left of it. So you need to go to the right to see that, right? Another way to see that graphically, since we are on the navigation chapter, and there's the label, there's the dash above it, and confirmed by the chapter itself, we go from page 1 to page 4. All right, and this is the graphical, simple but effective, the graphical representation of what we talked about. Remember, we have a flight plan going from Leesburg to Winchester via Jason. Then we got instructions to deviate, divert to Martinsburg directly, and we chose to go on the 270 radial. The first thing I would do in this graphics, I will use the clear button to declutter the screen. And what's left are my waypoints, Leesburg, Jason, KOKV, and MRB. Notice that my waypoints are no longer connected. That means the GPS is not following the flight plan. To illustrate the OBS point again, graphically, let's say we were given another instructions to fly to Martinsburg on the 260 radial. So I turn OBS on. Leg is suggested, but I don't really want leg, I want OBS, so I push OBS again. And notice, as I change the number from 270 to 260, I want you to keep an eye on this line right here. So I go here's my 260 to Martinsburg, and I will hit the cursor to stop. And what it does is wherever you are in the plane, of course, you will see a representation of your aircraft. So you might have been between Leesburg and Jason, and somewhere here you see the airplane, and you'll see the direction, and you see your destination MRB, and you see the OBS. So what you would normally do, just fly using this map all the way up and intercept the 262. An easier example would be, let's turn OBS on one more time, and let's say we want to go to the 330, which is the more normal way of the way we do it in Leesburg. Notice the OBS course changes, just to let you know. Here's the 300. I'll say thank you, that's good enough for me. and then I will look at the where I am, where my aircraft is positioned, and I will just track to that line and intercept it and go to Martinsburg, and I'm guaranteed to be arriving at Martinsburg VOR via the 300 bearing 2. And that's what the OBS and the nearest buttons do together. Remember, the nearest helped us find the VOR, and the OBS helped us find the exact bearing that we can use to get to a waypoint from a specific angle. And we've used navigation chapter to see the thing graphically. Now, we've covered message, OBS, nearest, direct to, clear, and enter. And what we have left is altitude. Now, we've covered enter, clear, direct to, nearest, OBS, and message. We haven't talked about altitude yet. So to demonstrate that, it's very straightforward. It's asking you, since there is no direct input from the aircraft data to the GPS of what the altitude is, it asks you, when you receive your weather and you get altitude info, you click altitude, and it says, okay, manually enter the altitude in here. So if it's 3001, you simply turn the enter knob, 3001, and it'll tell you, based on the flight plan that you have, as minimum safe altitude is 4800. En route safe altitude is 4800. It's good to know. Now, once you have that in, you can click the Alt button again, and you have an option to get audible alarms if you set, for example, I want when my aircraft is at 3,700 to hear a notification, audible notification that I arrived at 3,700. And if I deviate from 3,700 by 200 feet above or 200 feet below, also give me another audible sound to let me know that I'm not. Now, we're not going to cover this in details, but it's good to know. I will have another video on that. We looked at the first page of altitude. We set the altimeter settings. This is the second page. To get out of this, click altitude one more time, and you're back where you came from. So right now we're on navigation. All right, so now I'm going to take you through the various chapters at a very, very high level description. So we start with this one. APT is for airport, and it gives you all kinds of information about the airports. I will let you discover that on your own, or look for other videos for details on each chapter. Okay, VORs has 2 pages. NDB also has 2 pages. Intersections also has 2 pages. User is where you save your user points. In this case, there are no user points. And it has 3 pages. ACT is for active waypoints, and these reflect what's in the flight plan. And you can see 1, 2, number of pages. But if I pull the knob out, I go from MRB to KGO, Jason, and Winchester, which are waypoints in my flight plan. Push it back in, turn it to the right. Now I'm scanning through pages within the active chapter. Now this is navigation. Let's go to page 1. It has page 1, 2, 3, 4, and back to 1. Flight plan. Flight plan 0 is the active flight plan. And stored flight plans that could be recalled at any time. Calculations. If you input waypoint information from and to and all that stuff, it will help you calculate a lot of things like estimated arrival time, en route time, and so on and so forth. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 7, 8 pages. Set is the settings for this unit. Initial position, I programmed that to be Leesburg because there's no satellite reception. This is a docking station. Set, page 1, page 2, page 3. This is where you update your database, by the way. Page 4, turn anticipation turned on. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and back to 1. Other is basically other. There's a lot of miscellaneous things in here. Page 2, page 3. This is where RAIM testing happens. If you tell it where you're going, it'll tell you if you're going to have good satellite reception. 4, user waypoints. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and back to 1. Now, this is a quick overview of chapters and different pages within those chapters. I will have a video dedicated to each of those chapters, so look for more videos from me. Thank you so much for watching this. I know it was long-winded, but this covers the interface and all the buttons and all the labels and all the dials and everything else. Hope this was helpful to you. Please leave me feedback so I know to continue or modify or update or what have you as needed. Have a great day.